If she is truly your choice, then choose her in front of me. Emily Carter's voice did not rise, but it carried through the moon hall more sharply than any ceremonial bell. Hundreds of wolves stood beneath silver banners and winter-white flowers, watching the woman who had been presented as Frostvale's future Luna for 3 years face the Lycan King she had once believed would complete the sacred bond beside her. Adrian Cole stood at the center of the mating circle, broad-shouldered and motionless beneath the pale light pouring through the glass ceiling. At 39, he had the kind of presence that made entire councils fall quiet when he entered a room. Tonight, that authority felt colder. Beside him stood Vanessa Hale in a silver ceremonial gown that should never have been hers to wear. Emily noticed everything at once. The Luna clasp resting on the velvet cushion between them, the guarded faces of the council, the faint satisfaction in Vanessa's eyes, and the way Adrian refused to meet Emily's gaze for more than a second. For months, the court had whispered that Emily was too gentle for Frostvale, too soft-spoken, too slow to challenge stronger alphas. Her wolf had never completed a full shift, and noble families had begun calling her an unfinished Luna when they thought she could not hear. Adrian had always dismissed the gossip in private. Tonight, he had invited it into the sacred circle. The Western Pax need stability, he said. House Hale has secured alliances we cannot ignore. Emily looked at Vanessa, then back at him. So this is politics? Adrian's jaw tightened. This is duty. Duty to whom? A murmur moved through the hall. Vanessa stepped closer to Adrian. You are making this harder than it needs to be. Emily turned toward her. No, I am making it clear. Grace Whitmore, the Moon Priestess, stood near the altar with both hands folded over her ceremonial staff. Her face revealed nothing, but her eyes had not left Emily since Vanessa entered the circle. Adrian reached for the silver Luna clasp. Emily's chest tightened. That clasp had been prepared for her, not as jewelry, but as the symbol used before the final sacred bond was sealed. Adrian lifted it from the cushion. Emily, he said quietly, this decision has been made. For one painful moment, she remembered the nights he had promised patience. The mornings he had told her that a Luna's strength was not measured by how loudly she commanded a room. The first time he had called her his future queen. Those memories did not disappear. They simply stopped protecting him. Emily straightened. Then do not hide behind your counsel. Adrian looked at her fully now. She held his gaze. Choose her. The entire hall seemed to stop breathing. Vanessa extended her hand. Adrian hesitated. Only one heartbeat. But Emily felt it. Then he placed the Luna clasp into Vanessa's palm. Something inside Emily went quiet. No tears came. No plea. No collapse. Vanessa closed her fingers around the silver as if she had already won. Then, high above them, the sacred bells began to ring. Once. Twice. Then all 7 sounded together. No priest had touched the ropes. No wind moved through the hall. Wolves throughout the chamber lifted their heads. Adrian turned sharply toward the rafters. Grace's expression changed for the first time. Emily barely noticed. A strange warmth had begun beneath her ribs, spreading through her chest like moonlight under ice. Her wolf, silent and incomplete for years, stirred awake with sudden clarity. Emily froze. A voice rose inside her, ancient and calm, speaking not with anger, but command. Do not kneel. The bells were still ringing when Grace Whitmore raised her ceremonial staff. The rejected Luna must kneel and acknowledge the new bond. Her voice carried through the moon hall with the weight of tradition, and every wolf in the chamber seemed to hold its breath. Emily stood inside the silver-lit circle, her heart beating hard against her ribs. She had heard the rule before. Everyone had. Once a mate was publicly released during the mating ceremony, the rejected wolf was expected to kneel, lower her head, and recognize the pair chosen in her place. It was supposed to prevent challenge, preserve order, and close the old bond before the moon. Emily looked at Adrian. He was watching her now, not Vanessa. Something in his expression had changed since the bells began to ring, but it was too late for uncertainty to comfort her. Grace spoke again, softer this time. Emily. Emily understood. She stepped forward. The silver circle glowed beneath her shoes. She drew in one slow breath and bent her knees. Nothing happened. Her body stopped halfway down. Emily frowned and tried again. A strange pressure gathered beneath her, not painful, not violent, but absolute. It held her upright as though the floor itself refused to receive her. A murmur moved through the hall. Emily's face warmed under hundreds of eyes. She tried a third time. Her knees trembled, but they would not touch the stone. Vanessa let out a quiet laugh. Even rejected, she still needs the room watching her. Emily lifted her head. I am trying to kneel. Then try harder, Vanessa said. Adrian turned toward her. Enough. Vanessa's smile faded. Grace stepped into the circle and studied Emily closely. Do you feel resistance? Yes. From your wolf. Emily hesitated. That ancient presence was still there beneath her heartbeat, calm and awake. I do not know. Grace looked toward the ceiling where the sacred bells had finally gone silent. Do not force it. Several council members shifted uneasily. One older alpha spoke from the front row. The ceremony cannot continue while she stands inside the circle. Adrian's expression hardened. Then she leaves the circle. The words struck Emily more cleanly than Vanessa's laughter had. Adrian looked at her. Emily, step outside. She held his gaze for one long second, then moved toward the edge of the sacred floor. This time nothing resisted her. She crossed the silver boundary easily. The instant both feet touched the outer stone, every ceremonial flame in the hall changed color. Gold vanished. Silver rose. Not one candle flickered between shades. Hundreds of flames turned at once, cold and bright, filling the chamber with pale light. Vanessa stared at the Luna clasp in her hand. Adrian stepped back from the altar. Owen Brooks, commander of the Royal Guard, whispered, "What does that mean?" No one answered. Grace was looking at Emily. Not at Vanessa. Not at the king. Emily could feel the entire hall turning toward her, but for the first time that night, the attention did not feel like humiliation. It felt like recognition. Vanessa tightened her grip around the clasp. Continue the ceremony. Grace did not move. Priestess, Vanessa said more sharply, continue. Grace turned slowly toward her. I cannot. Adrian's voice lowered. Why? Grace looked at the silver flames surrounding the mating circle. Because these flames do not mark rejection. Vanessa's face went still. Grace's eyes returned to Emily. They mark refusal. A chill passed through the court. Adrian stared at her. Refusal of what? Grace answered quietly, but every wolf heard it. Not Emily. She looked toward Vanessa and the Luna clasp in her hand. The ceremony did not reject the woman you cast aside. It rejected the one you tried to place in her position. Vanessa did not step out of the moon circle. She stood beneath the silver flames with the Luna clasp clenched in one hand, her face pale with disbelief. Adrian looked from her to Grace, then toward Emily near the edge of the hall. Continue, he said. Grace did not move. Your Majesty, the circle has already answered. A restless murmur passed through the nobles. Vanessa lifted her chin. Then begin again. She stepped deeper into the sacred ring. The silver light beneath her feet narrowed. One bright line closed around her shoes, then another, until the circle seemed to pull inward instead of opening to receive her. Vanessa froze. What is happening? Grace's expression hardened. Do not move. The last remaining golden flame on the altar went silver. At once, the royal wolves along the eastern wall shifted their attention. Owen Brooks felt it first. Something inside his wolf tightened, searching for direction. Adrian was still there. His scent was still strong, familiar, unmistakable. Yet another presence had entered the room, quieter but deeper, like a heartbeat beneath stone. Owen turned his head. So did the guard beside him. Then another. Across the hall, wolf after wolf looked toward Emily. She noticed and stepped back. The movement made them lean forward almost as one. Her pulse quickened. Do not. The nearest wolves stopped. Emily stared. Owen stared too. She had not spoken like a queen. She had barely raised her voice. Still, every royal wolf had obeyed. Adrian saw it. His face changed. Vanessa saw it too. This is some kind of trick. Emily looked at her. I do not know what this is. You expect us to believe that? I expected to leave this hall rejected. Emily's voice stayed quiet. That was enough for one night. She turned toward the doors. The royal wolves shifted again. Owen's hand closed around the edge of his ceremonial belt. His mind told him to remain at his post. His wolf wanted to follow her. Hold, Adrian ordered. The guards obeyed instantly, but the strain remained in their posture. Emily stopped before reaching the doors. Why are they looking at me? Owen answered before anyone else could. Because they are waiting. Adrian looked sharply at him. For what? Owen swallowed. For her. Silence spread through the moon hall. Vanessa stepped out of the shrinking circle at last, and the silver lines faded beneath her feet. She moved toward Adrian. End this. Send her away. Emily closed her eyes for 1 second. The strange warmth beneath her ribs had returned. Stronger now. Her wolf was no longer silent. It was listening. She opened her eyes and looked down as a faint burning sensation touched her left wrist. A thin silver mark appeared beneath her skin, shaped like the profile of a wolf beneath a crescent moon. Emily drew in a sharp breath. Grace saw it from across the hall. The color left her face. She crossed the floor quickly and caught Emily's wrist before she could hide it. Where did you get this? It was not there before. Grace stared at the symbol. Adrian stepped closer. What does it mean? Grace did not answer immediately. Her thumb hovered over the mark without touching it. This symbol has not been recorded in Frostvale for more than 400 years. Vanessa laughed once, but there was no confidence left in it. Convenient. Grace turned on her. There is nothing convenient about this. Then she looked at Adrian. The ceremony is over. Adrian's eyes narrowed. On whose authority? Grace faced him fully. On the authority of a law older. Then your crown. Emily pulled her wrist back. I want to leave. Grace nodded. You may. Adrian looked toward the royal wolves. And them. Owen breathed in slowly. Every wolf under his command was still watching Emily. We stay. Emily took 1 step toward the doors. The silver mark on her wrist brightened. Somewhere deep beneath the moon hall, something answered with a low, ancient pulse. Grace went still. No, she whispered. Emily turned. What? Grace stared at the floor as if listening to something buried far below them. The archive. Adrian frowned. What about it? Grace looked at Emily. Whatever woke tonight has been waiting longer than any of us have been alive. Grace led Emily beneath the moon hall through a narrow stone passage that descended into the oldest part of Frostvale Palace. Adrian followed several steps behind, with Owen beside him and Daniel Reed waiting at the archive door when they arrived. Vanessa had been ordered to remain upstairs with the council, though Emily could still feel the weight of her accusation lingering in the silence. The silver mark on Emily's wrist glowed faintly with every step. Daniel unlocked the final iron door and looked at Grace. You said this was urgent. Grace held Emily's wrist beneath the lantern light. Daniel's expression changed immediately. Where did she get that? During the ceremony. That symbol is not supposed to exist anymore. Emily looked between them. Everyone keeps saying that. I would prefer someone explain what it actually means. Grace entered the archive. Shelves curved along the walls, filled with sealed records, old maps, and ceremonial tablets darkened by centuries. She moved toward a cabinet carved with a wolf beneath a crescent moon, then removed a narrow wooden box. Inside lay a faded parchment wrapped in silver thread. Daniel exhaled. That record was sealed by royal order. Adrian stepped closer. Then unseal it. Grace looked at him. You may not like what it says. I did not come here to be protected from words. She broke the thread. Emily stood beside the table, trying to ignore the warmth spreading beneath her skin. Grace opened the parchment carefully. For 117 years ago, Frostvale recorded the last appearance of a wolf carrying this mark. Owen frowned. The wolf of legend. Daniel nodded slowly. That is what later generations called it. Emily's stomach tightened. So it is the strongest wolf. No. Grace's answer came immediately. That is the story people invented afterward. She traced a line of old script. The original records describe something very different. The legendary wolf was not born to conquer. It appeared when the sacred balance between crown and mate had been broken by ambition, pride, or political control. Adrian's face grew still. Emily looked at him, then back at Grace. You are saying this happened because of what he did tonight. I am saying the mark does not awaken because someone is rejected. Grace met her eyes. Many wolves have been rejected. Many have suffered worse. This mark appears when power violates a sacred choice, and the one who was wronged refuses to become cruel in return. Emily looked down at her wrist. I did nothing. Exactly. Grace's voice softened. You did not curse Vanessa. You did not challenge Adrian's throne. You told the royal wolves not to follow you. Even after humiliation, you refused to make someone else carry your pain. Adrian's eyes lowered. Daniel turned another page. There is a line here. Grace read it aloud. The balancing wolf rises not for dominion, but when dominion forgets restraint. Silence filled the archive. Owen looked toward Adrian, then quickly away. Emily felt no triumph. If anything, the words frightened her. What happens next? Grace hesitated. The old records are incomplete. Incomplete how? The last bearer shifted fully within 3 days of receiving the mark. Emily's breath caught. I have never completed a shift. That may no longer matter. Adrian stepped forward. Can this be stopped? Emily turned toward him. The question hurt more than she expected. Grace noticed. Stopped, she repeated. Adrian immediately understood how it sounded. That is not what I meant. Emily's voice stayed quiet. It sounded like exactly what you meant. I meant, can she be protected from whatever this demands of her? Grace studied him for a long moment. The legend does not demand obedience from her. She folded the parchment. It demands truth from everyone around her. Adrian looked at the silver mark. Then tell me the truth. Grace faced him fully. The truth is that the ceremony did not create this problem tonight. It revealed one that already existed. The words settled heavily between them. Emily's wrist suddenly burned warmer. The symbol brightened, and somewhere beyond the archive door, the royal wolves began moving at once. Owen turned sharply toward the sound. They are coming down here. Emily stepped back. Why? Grace looked at her, then at the ancient record. Because the legend is waking faster than it did the last time. By the time Emily returned to the Moon Hall, the council had already turned fear into accusation. Vanessa stood near the center of the chamber with the silver Luna clasped still in her hand, surrounded by nobles speaking over one another beneath the cold glow of the ceremonial flames. She brought this into the palace. Vanessa said the moment Emily entered. Whatever is happening to the royal wolves, whatever happened to the ceremony, it started with her. Emily stopped several feet inside the doors. I did not even know this mark existed an hour ago. She lifted her wrist. The silver symbol beneath her skin was brighter now, pulsing with the same slow rhythm she had felt beneath the archive floor. One alpha from the Western Council stepped forward. Until we understand what she is, she should be contained. Owen's expression hardened. Contained where? Somewhere away from the king. Another council member added, and away from the royal pack. Emily looked at Adrian. He stood beside the ceremonial platform, silent, his face unreadable. She waited for him to speak. 1 second passed, then another. It should not have mattered, but it did. That hesitation told her more than any speech could have. Even after everything Grace had revealed, some part of him was still measuring her as a threat before seeing her as the woman he had wronged. Emily's chest tightened. The wolf inside her rose. Not with anger, with certainty. Emily, Grace said softly. The silver mark flared. A wave of warmth moved through Emily's body, deeper than heat, steadier than pain. Her breath caught. The room seemed to sharpen around her. Every sense separated. Cedar from the benches, winter air from the open balcony, fear from the council, Adrian's familiar presence. Owen took 1 step forward. Give her space. The royal wolves obeyed immediately. Vanessa backed away. What is she doing? Emily tried to answer, but the wolf inside her was no longer waiting. Light spread beneath her skin in thin silver lines. Her balance shifted. The world dropped lower around her, then widened. When the change settled, silence filled the Moon Hall. Where Emily had stood was a massive white-silver wolf, larger than any ordinary pack wolf, with pale lunar markings running across her shoulders and along her back like moonlight traced by hand. Her blue-gray eyes remained unmistakably hers. No one screamed. No one ran. They simply stared. Then the first royal wolf lowered his head. Another followed. Within seconds, nearly every wolf in the chamber bowed by instinct. Owen fought the pull long enough to look at Grace. Is this it? Grace's voice was barely above a whisper. Yes. Adrian remained standing, but his own wolf pressed heavily beneath his skin, urging recognition. Vanessa looked around at the bowed council. Make them stop. No one answered her. Emily took 1 slow step forward. Several nobles flinched, but she did not move toward Vanessa. She did not move toward Adrian either. Instead, she walked to the exact center of the Moon Hall and stopped beneath the silver flames. The power in the room seemed to gather around her. She could feel how easily fear might become obedience. How easily obedience might become control. She wanted none of it. Emily turned her back on the throne. The gesture landed harder than any challenge. Owen lifted his head first. Then, without a command, the royal wolves rose and moved away from the ceremonial platform. They formed a wide circle around Emily, not trapping her, not threatening anyone, simply placing themselves between her and every voice that had called her dangerous. Adrian stared at them. Owen, the commander, looked at his king. Your Majesty, why are you doing this? Owen glanced at the white silver wolf standing calmly at the center of the hall. Because she has all the power in this room right now. Adrian's jaw tightened. Owen finished quietly. And she is the only one not trying to use it. Emily remained in her white silver form until the last voice in the moon hall fell silent. The royal wolves held their wide circle around her, alert but calm, while Adrian stood beyond them with Grace and Daniel at his side. Vanessa had retreated near the council benches, the silver Luna clasp still clutched in her hand, as if possession alone could make it mean something. Daniel stepped forward with a sealed folder pressed against his chest. Your Majesty, I found the correspondence House Hale submitted before the ceremony. Adrian looked at him, and Daniel opened the folder. The Western Pacts never demanded Vanessa as Luna. They asked only for stronger trade guarantees and a royal representative at the next summit. Vanessa's face tightened. That is not the full record. Daniel lifted another page. This is the original record. He looked toward the council. House Hale altered the summary circulated to the throne. They made it appear that Frostvale's alliances depended on replacing Emily. A murmur spread across the hall. Adrian's eyes went to Vanessa. Did you know? She held his gaze. For a moment, Emily thought she might deny it. Instead, Vanessa exhaled. I knew my father intended to pressure the council. Adrian's voice dropped. That was not my question. Vanessa looked at Emily, then back at him. Yes. Silence returned. Adrian's expression hardened, but Vanessa spoke before he could. Do not make me the only reason this happened. The word stopped him. You listened because you already wanted to believe her gentleness was weakness. Adrian went still. Vanessa stepped closer, though the royal wolves did not move. Every time the council questioned whether Emily was strong enough, you defended her in private and stayed silent in public. Every time someone called her unfinished because she had not fully shifted, you let the insult remain in the room. Emily felt the truth of it even in wolf form. Adrian looked toward her. She did not look away. Vanessa's voice softened, but not with kindness. I did not create your doubt. I only gave you a reason to call it duty. Adrian's jaw tightened. House Hale falsified royal documents. Yes. And manipulated the mating ceremony. Yes. Then your family's council privileges are suspended pending formal review. Vanessa's face paled. Adrian, you wanted influence. You used deception to get it. He looked at the Luna clasp in her hand. Put that down. Vanessa hesitated, then placed the silver clasp on the nearest table. Grace stepped toward it, but did not touch it. Removing the false choice will not restore the true one. Adrian looked at her, meaning. Grace's eyes moved to Emily. The legend did not wake because Vanessa lied. It woke because the lie succeeded. The words settled heavily through the hall. Emily's wolf shifted its weight, and several royal wolves mirrored the movement without realizing it. Adrian noticed. Can this be undone? Grace's expression remained calm. You are still asking the wrong question. Then give me the right one. Grace looked at the white silver wolf standing at the center of the court. Ask what happens when the woman you rejected no longer needs your throne to prove who she is. Adrian's eyes stayed on Emily. For the first time that night, there was no command in his face. Only understanding beginning where certainty had failed. Emily turned away from him and walked toward the moon hall doors. The royal wolves opened their circle without being told. Adrian did not stop her. Behind him, Vanessa's false documents lay exposed before the council, but Grace's words followed him more closely than any accusation. Removing the liar would not undo the choice. Emily spent the night at the Moon Temple beyond the Eastern Gardens, where the palace lights looked distant enough to belong to another life. By dawn, the white-silver wolf had finally receded, leaving her exhausted but steady. Grace found her seated on the temple steps with a blanket around her shoulders and the Luna seal resting in her palm. You do not have to decide anything. Today, Grace said. Emily looked at the seal. I already did. When she returned to the palace, the royal wolves were waiting in the courtyard. Owen stepped forward. My Luna. Emily shook her head. Not anymore. He frowned. That is not what the pack believes. The pack does not get to make this decision for me. She placed the Luna seal on the stone table between them. Adrian emerged from the western corridor just as she let go of it. His eyes moved from the seal to her face. Emily. She turned toward him. I am leaving Frostvale. His expression tightened. Because of me. Because I need to know who I am when no one is bowing, because a legend woke inside me. Adrian took one step closer, then stopped. The royal wolves will escort you. No. Owen looked at her. At least let us protect the road. Emily met his eyes. You are sworn to Frostvale, not to my hurt. That silenced him. She looked at the line of wolves behind him. Go back to your posts. For a moment, no one moved. Their instincts still leaned toward her, but Emily felt the strange pull between them and did something no one expected. She released it. Not with magic she understood, but with intention. You do not owe me obedience. The pressure broke. Shoulders eased. Breathing changed. Owen was the first to straighten. We can move. Grace watched carefully. Because she is not claiming you. Emily looked at Adrian. I will not let fate make the choice you refuse to make freely. The words landed harder than anger. Adrian lowered his eyes. I understand. Emily almost laughed. Not yet. 3 days later, she left Frostvale alone and traveled north to Cedar Hollow, a quiet settlement more than 150 miles from the capital. No one there knew the silver mark beneath her wrist. No one knew the council had once prepared a throne for her. She rented a small room above a general store and began helping at a community clinic. Weeks passed, then months. Emily helped Omegas displaced by harsh pack laws find temporary housing. She organized medicine deliveries. She sat with widows filling out claims they had been too afraid to submit. No one called her legendary. They called her when something needed to be solved. One cold morning, relief wagons arrived from Frostvale. Owen rode beside the first one. He found Emily outside the clinic carrying boxes of bandages. The moment the royal wolves saw her, their attention sharpened. Emily noticed. Unload the medicine first. Owen smiled faintly. You heard her. The wolves obeyed, but this time there was no sacred pressure in the air. No forced bowing. No strange compulsion. They simply trusted her judgment. Owen watched townspeople greet Emily by name. Watched an elderly Omega hand her a list of winter needs. Watched 2 children run up to ask whether she could settle an argument over a sled. By sunset, he understood what Grace had meant. The legend had never created Emily's authority. It had only exposed what Frostvale had been too proud to see. Before leaving, Owen sent Adrian a short report. Most of it listed supplies, road conditions, and clinic shortages. At the bottom, he added one line. They follow her even when their wolves do not have to. Adrian read the sentence twice, then a third time. For the first time since Emily left, he did not ask how to bring her back. He asked what kind of kingdom had failed to recognize her before the moon was forced to intervene. Adrian began changing Frostvale before he ever saw Emily again. The first law removed the council's power to replace a sacred mate for political convenience. The second separated royal partnership from moonbound consent, making it clear that a crown could appoint an advisor or consort, but never rewrite a bond chosen by fate. The third gave Omegas elected seats on regional councils, including the right to challenge pack policies that affected housing, work, and family protections. Adrian signed each reform without asking whether Emily had heard about it. Months passed before he traveled north. He arrived in Cedar Hollow alone, wearing a plain charcoal coat instead of royal black and silver, with no guards, no ceremonial clasp, and no royal carriage behind him. Emily saw him from the clinic steps just before sunset. For several seconds, neither spoke. The distance between them felt larger than the 150 miles separating. Cedar Hollow from Frostvale. Adrian stopped several feet away. I am not here to take you back. Emily folded her arms. That is better than most openings you have used with me. He accepted the edge in her voice. I rejected you because I thought being king gave me the right to decide what was best for the throne, even when the decision belonged to both of us. Emily watched him carefully. Vanessa lied. She did. The council pressured you. They did. And neither of those things put the Luna clasp in her hand. Adrian's jaw tightened. No, I did that. The answer came without excuse. Emily looked toward the road. A few children were dragging a wooden sled toward the general store. Someone inside the clinic laughed. Ordinary life moved around them without noticing the Lycan King standing in the fading light. Why now, she asked. Because Owen told me people follow you here without magic. Her expression cooled. Adrian corrected himself. No, that is not the real reason. He took a breath. The real reason is that I finally understood what that meant. You did not become worthy when the legendary wolf appeared. The rest of us simply lost the excuse to ignore what was already there. Emily said nothing. Adrian continued. I spent years mistaking gentleness for something that required protection instead of something that required respect. And what happens if I never come back? The question came quietly. Adrian did not hesitate. The laws stay changed. What else? The council stays restructured. Omega representatives keep their seats. Sacred mating ceremonies remain protected by consent. No future Luna will be judged unfit because her wolf is quiet, late to shift, or different from what nobles expect. Emily searched his face. And if none of that earns you another chance with me? Then it still needed to happen. Something in her chest loosened, but she did not let him see how much. So what are you asking for? Adrian looked at her with none of the certainty he had carried in Moon Hall. Nothing. Emily frowned. Nothing. I wanted you to hear the apology from me, not through reforms or reports. His voice lowered. I was wrong before Vanessa entered. That circle. I was wrong every time I stayed silent when the court diminished you. I was wrong when I called my fear of looking weak a duty to Frostvale. Emily held his gaze. If I never come back, what will you change? She asked again. Adrian answered. Everything that should have changed before I lost you. The words settled between them. No bells rang. No sacred mark burned. No wolf compelled her to move closer. For once, there was only choice. Emily nodded toward his horse. Then prove it where I cannot see you. Adrian lowered his head once. I will. He turned to leave. Adrian. He stopped. Emily's expression softened by only a fraction. Do not make me regret believing that answer. He looked back. I will spend the rest of my reign making sure you do not. Then he rode south alone, and Emily remained on the clinic steps long after the road had gone quiet, wondering for the first time not whether he wanted her back, but whether he might finally be becoming the man who deserved to ask. 1 year after the night Emily walked out of Moon Hall, Frostvale gathered beneath the same silver banners for a very different ceremony. There was no mating circle carved into the floor, no council waiting to approve a Luna, and no noble family standing close enough to whisper advice into the king's ear. The gathering had been called to recognize the kingdom's new sacred bond laws before the moon. Adrian stood near the altar in formal black and silver while Grace Whitmore prepared the ceremonial records. Owen Brooks and the royal wolves lined the eastern wall. None of them expected the great doors to open before the final oath was read. Emily entered alone. Conversation vanished from the hall. She wore a simple winter blue gown and no royal jewelry. The silver mark beneath her wrist was barely visible. Adrian saw her and went completely still. He had not been told she was coming. That mattered to her. Emily walked down the center aisle, while familiar faces watched without the cruel curiosity they had carried a year earlier. Omega representatives now sat among the regional delegates. Several lowered their heads respectfully, but no one knelt. Emily stopped several feet. From the altar, Grace looked at her once, then placed the old Luna clasp on a white cloth between them. She did not hand it to Adrian. He did not reach for it. This belongs here only if you choose it, Grace said. Adrian looked at Emily. It was never mine to give away. His voice carried across the hall. No explanation followed. No excuse. Emily studied the silver clasp that had once been placed in Vanessa's hand while she stood rejected before the entire kingdom. And if I take it, she asked, what does that make me? Adrian answered without hesitation. Not mine. A quiet breath moved through the room. My equal, if you still choose me. Emily felt the wolf inside her stir. Not urgently. Not painfully. Calmly. The same ancient presence that had once told her not to kneel now waited without command. Emily closed her eyes. Silver warmth moved through her chest. When she opened them again, moonlight spilled across the floor. Her body shifted smoothly into the white-silver wolf of legend, lunar markings glowing along her shoulders. The royal wolves reacted at once, but none of them bowed. Owen remained standing. So did every wolf beside him. Their eyes followed Emily, not because instinct forced them down, but because they recognized her without surrendering themselves. Adrian stayed where he was. His wolf rose beneath his skin, powerful and alert, yet he did not lower his head. He did not need to. Emily crossed the hall slowly until she stood before him. For one long moment, The legendary wolf and the Lycan King faced each other in complete silence. Then Emily touched her forehead gently to his open hand. The silver flames along the altar brightened. Grace smiled. "Balance," she whispered. Emily stepped back and shifted into human form once more. No one rushed to cover the silence with applause. She reached for the Luna, clasped herself. Her fingers closed around the silver. Adrian watched, but did not move to place it on her. Emily fastened it at her own collar. "This does not erase what happened," she said. "I know. And it does not mean I return to the woman I was. I would never ask you to." Emily looked toward the Omega delegates, the restructured council, and the royal wolves still standing instead of kneeling. Then she looked back at him. "Good." Adrian extended one hand. Nothing in the hall compelled her to take it. No sacred law. No legendary wolf. No frightened council. Emily let the choice sit between them long enough for both of them to understand what it meant. Then she placed her hand in his. Adrian closed his fingers gently around hers. The moon bells rang once above them, not as warning, not as judgment, but as witness. Frostvale did not receive a Luna because fate had forced her back to the throne. It received her because the woman who had once been rejected now stood beside the king on terms she had chosen for herself. And this time, no one asked her to kneel.